Good evening, everyone. I'm going to call to order the March 28th Shelby Township Planning Commission meeting. I'm going to ask our acting secretary, Mr. John Snyder, to call the roll.
Mr. Meredith. Ms. Gonzalez.
Here.
Mr. Grote.
Here.
Ms. Moore. Mr. Pone. Mr. LeRae.
Here.
Mr. Moffett. Mr. Turner.
Here.
Chairman, we have a quorum.
Thank you very much. First item is approval of the minutes from our February 28th meeting.
So moved.
Second. Been moved and seconded. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. On our site plans tonight, we have two. We're going to flip-flop the order of them. So the first item tonight will be site plan number 22-2 for John Vitale. And I will take a motion to approve the agenda as amended.
Support.
There a motion?
So moved.
Motion by Mr. LeRae, seconded by Mr. Snyder. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. As I was saying, our site plan first is 22-2 for John Vitale for Porsche North Detroit, 45-100 Mound Road, final review. It's northeast corner of M59 and Mound Road. It's a car dealership, a modification to the site plan. I'll ask the petitioner to come up and let us know what he's doing.
Good evening. My name is Denver Brooker, architect with Vocon, representing Rafi Auto Group, the owners of this new dealership. In January, you reviewed and approved what was thought to be a final site plan submission, and since then, working with the owner, there's been a few small modifications. I'll quickly walk you through those. On the outside, the rendering is a good place to show you. The only perceivable difference between what you saw and this version is that it's 4 feet shorter. Through a combination of interior planning changes and sectional changes, we simply don't need a 34-foot high building. It's only 30 feet. And then I'm going to quickly go to the site plan. The building was designed for a certain amount of expansion as we were pulling together estimates for the cost of construction and looking at how many cars he could actually get from Porsche to sell there. He scaled back the amount of growth that the building could accommodate, and so the building is a little bit smaller. The second floor was removed. We removed a couple of service bays, a wash bay, so the building became smaller in footprint. The east edge of the building moved west about 15 or 20 feet, and the result is what we can see here. The site plan is now that there's some green space to the east of the parking lot. Basically, the parking lot's moved to the west. We've relocated a drainage swale to that location and moved the parts reclaim structure and the trash enclosure all moved west as well. So through the whole submission, I'm going to walk you through all the details. Pavement shrunk, so then we moved the light fixtures. We made some adjustments within the parking lot to allow for fire truck and car carrier access, which led us to reducing the number of spaces to the 95 that are shown in the current submission. Building area. And then we adjusted the landscape accordingly based on all those site adjustments. There's a few small modifications that were made related to working with the electric charging system associated with the Porsche dealerships. So we moved a few spaces around on the front to accommodate some charging equipment and meet their criteria for the number of charging stations. Happy to go into more elaborate detail. Just depends on what you'd like to.
Okay, that's it for now?
Yes.
Okay. Turn it over to Julie. Did you do? Oh, yeah, Julie, go ahead.
Yes, thank you, Chairman. We had met with Mr. Brooker and his team about the modification to the site plan. It still meets all the zoning ordinance requirements, even with the reduction in the parking spaces. It's appropriate with the reduction in the building size as well. And the landscape screening along the east property line was increased So basically, everything else still stays the same, and there's no other issues with this. A tree permit will be required for this site. I know that in the correspondence that you emailed me, once engineering has been done, you will mark all the trees that are to be removed, and then we'll issue a tree permit at that point.
Mark them in the field.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
That's it? Okay. Any commissioners have any questions for the petitioner? Hearing none, a motion would be in order.
Mr. Chairman,
Mr. Snyder?
I move to approve the modified site plan number 22-02, Denver Brooker Vocon for Porsche Detroit North, located on the east side of Mound Road, north of M59, parcel numbers 23-07-33-351-044, 23-07-33-351-012, and 23-07-33-351-13, subject to the submission of a revised site plan addressing all departmental comments.
Motion by Commissioner Snyder, seconded by Commissioner Gonzalez. Are there any questions on the motion? Hearing none. Commissioner Snyder?
Yes.
Commissioner Gonzalez?
Yes.
Commissioner Grote?
Yes.
Commissioner LeRae?
Yes.
And chair votes yes. Motion carries.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, and good luck. Next item is a site plan number 22-09 SLU1, rezoning petition number 1-22 for Phil Ruggieri for F&F Van Dyke LLC, south of 26 Mile Road, east of Van Dyke Avenue, retail center with a drive-through. Public hearing. I'll ask Acting Secretary Snyder to read the motion as published, or the notice as published.
Charter of Township of Shelby, notice of public hearing. Notice is hereby given that the Planning Commission for the Charter Township of Shelby, Macomb County, Michigan, has received a request for the approval of the following site plan, special land use, and conditional rezoning. Applicant, Phil Ruggieri, F&F Van Dyke LLC, 43231 Shana Road, Sterling Heights, Michigan, 48313. Proposed use, retail center and drive-through. Proposed zoning, C1, local retail business to C2, linear retail business. Location, 56120 Van Dyke Avenue, south of 26 Mile, east of Van Dyke Avenue. Site plan number 22-09 SLU1, conditional rezoning petition 01-22. The Planning Commission will meet on March 28th, 2022 at 7 p.m. in the Shelby Municipal Building, 52700 Van Dyke, Shelby Township, Michigan, 586-726-7243, for the purposes of holding a public hearing on the special land use and conditional rezoning application. The application for the site plan, special land use, and conditional rezoning may be examined at the Planning and Zoning Department in the municipal building, Monday through Friday, from 8:30 to 5. Written comments may be submitted to the Planning Commission at the above address prior to the hearing. Oral comments will be heard during the public hearing. This notice was provided pursuant to the requirements of Michigan Public Act 110 of 2006 as amended. Shelby Township Planning Commission, Jerome Moffett, Chair, Raquel Moore, Secretary. Published in the Shelby Utica News, March 9th, 2022. And it was sent to 69 property owners, and one applicant were notified by first-class mail on March 11th, 2022.
Thank you, Mr. Snyder. Mr. Kirk, does the notice meet all legal requirements as stipulated in local ordinances and state statute?
Yes, it does.
Anyone have any questions of our attorney? All right, hearing none, we did receive a couple pieces of correspondence. First was from John Moran, who is opposed to the rezoning. He wants to know, is it really necessary? He wants to know if there's any impact on the Connor Drain, and he was concerned about parking. Second is from Chris Wagner, who's against the rezoning. if it's used, bless you, for any kind of fast food or drinks, and he thinks he's concerned about late night or early hours of the business. The format for the public hearing will be as follows. The chair will explain that the petitioner or his representative will give a presentation stating the reasons for the rezoning request. Commissioners may then ask questions of the petitioner. The floor will be open to the public, and then the petitioner will make concluding remarks. I see the petitioner is here, so if Mr. Ruggieri, if you'd like to proceed, stating the reasons for the rezoning request.
Thank you, Mr. Turner. Good evening. For the record, Phil Ruggieri, and I'm with my partner, Fadi Saman. We're here for the property located at 56120 Van Dyke. That property originally was in a very blighted condition. It was an old, it looked like a semi-industrial building and two ancillary buildings. And since we bought it, we have torn down or demolished those sites to make it a clear, nice piece of land. And we removed all the blight that was attendant to it. We are right next to the Mars Electric, which now is a very pronounced site because it has all these cars lining up. It almost looks like a dump site. What we're trying to do is take this property and convert it to redevelopment to help beautify that corridor along Van Dyke. And as you can see, this is the concept plan that we put together with our architect, Ron Chiesa. Very tastefully done with a combination of brick and stone and the bluish type windows. And then we have put together a site plan. As you can see, here we have concentrated on having the ingress and egress coming in off of Van Dyke. We would terminate the ingress and egress that's on Crawford Street, so nothing would go along the residential component. And we have a substantial buffer to the far east. We would have a decorative wall placed, a 6-foot wall with a substantial amount of landscaping within the interior. So adequate measures have been taken to protect and buffer us from any residential to the south. There is only one residential lot, and that individual happens to be here, and that's the same gentleman we bought the land from. He is adequately buffered in accordance with the ordinance. We have adequate parking. We have adequate stacking that's allowed or to accommodate for the drive-through. Now, the first reason you want to probably ask is, why do you need a drive-through? Well, today's world in the restaurant business, and Fadi and I are involved. We have 5 Popeyes, one soon to open this coming Friday on 23 Mile. We have 15 Burger Kings, and 95+% of our business now is through the drive-through. And you're going to find that through all your restaurants. For mobile devices, et cetera, they need to have a drive-through, whether it's a board itself where you order on site or you just do a pickup, like Chipotle does on 23 Mile Road. Theirs is next to our other Burger King. Theirs is strictly a mobile pickup, but they have to have that type of operation. To be successful today, you have to, because your staffing has been condensed, and you have to make it very convenient for the patrons. So in order to make this a marketable attraction and to attract a major player, we need to have that drive-through, and it makes sense. That whole corridor along there is commercial currently, but this particular increase from the C1 to the C2 with the special land use gives us the ability to develop a very attractive site, and it'll help spur the type of development that goes on both sides of the street. Right now, to our north, you have a very tastefully done center. They have that Bread and Roses and a workout facility, and I go there all the time in the morning. It's a nice place. That's a very nice center, but we feel that our center is even more attractive than that. It brings a higher quality, so it's setting the standard along that corridor. And there's still ample vacant parcels on our side and across the street that will be developed, so we're trying to be setting a standard for here in the township. I think this parcel commands it. We need some more restaurants in the area. I know we have some across the street next to the Kroger site, but we're looking at some unique type restaurant services to come in the site. It may be just one user, it could be 2 users, it could be 3, but the primary user would be that which takes the drive-through. So We still are marketing right now, but we need to get through this stage before we can actively entertain some offers in that regard. So we're here to answer any questions you might have, and we thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Ruggieri. I have a couple of questions on the rezoning from C1 to C2. Can the property currently be developed as C1?
Well, it's pretty limited. You know, you've got what's going on there currently. To the north, that's all C1, and you're starting to exhaust the type of uses that you can attract. I don't think it's conducive to developing as a C1. You need something above and beyond that. Otherwise, you're just putting your typical strip center, and they're not flying. That's why a lot of the stuff remains vacant in the area. They need to have that extra incentive, which is the drive-through. In order to accommodate, as I said earlier, restaurants today, you need to have a drive-through. It goes, even with your high-level restaurants, they have drive-throughs nowadays. It's just a standard in order to have things moving in that right direction to make it profitable and sustainable.
I didn't catch, what was the percentage you said restaurants are doing the drive-through work? You mentioned a number.
Your fast food drive-throughs, your fast food restaurants, such as McDonald's, Burger King, Popeyes, et cetera, we're now averaging about 90% of our business.
Okay, then I want to ask you about the drive-through and the stacking.
Sure.
90% business, and of course, we've seen some drive-throughs on, I'll just point to one on Hall Road by Meyer where there's a Starbucks. They have a drive-through, and during the pandemic and even afterwards, they had closed indoor service, which led to drive-through being overstacked and traffic circulation for the Meyer. Given the size of this site, right now you have stacking for 10 vehicles on site under a normal day. And I'd like to ask about the tenants too, but on a normal day, now if they close the indoor service and they have excessive stacking, could that be, do you foresee that as being a problem with traffic circulation or potential safety issue on site?
No, we think we've adequately accounted for the stacking, whether it's, there's an issue about staffing or not. This site can accommodate the traffic, and we're well experienced in this type of a business, and we don't see any problem with that.
Okay.
You can see, I'm glad you used Starbucks for an example, because on 23 Mile Road, because they don't have a drive-through, they were closed a tremendous number of times during the past 2 years for COVID, and in fact, as early as a couple months ago, they closed because they had insufficient staffing. They had to close outright. So they're getting hit with twofold, and today, there's not a Starbucks that will open anymore unless they have a drive-through. They just can't sustain the type of demand.
Now, let's go beyond Starbucks. Let's just use another example. Chick-fil-A on Hall Road. That is a stacking nightmare, so that's
agree with
another one I was concerned about. If you have excessive stacking here, could that become an issue?
Now, that one is an aberration. I think everybody in the entire country is trying to figure out Chick-fil-A. We don't know what drives people to go there and wait 45 minutes to get a chicken sandwich. It blows my mind. But that attracts so much traffic, it's ridiculous. When it was on Hall Road, I could not believe the way it stifled traffic, et cetera. Whatever comes in here is not going to be Chick-fil-A, I can guarantee that, okay? That is just a unique aberration that's going on. All your fast foods do not have these type of problems that Chick-fil-A has. It's something that draws a crowd to that Chick-fil-A, and it happens throughout the whole country. It's not just here in Michigan. Chick-fil-A, even at the mall, at Oakland, at Somerset Mall, there's a line there with 150, 200 people waiting. It's just incredible. But that's not the norm that you have, okay? I think what we've set this up for will handle adequately the traffic, and we keep it all on site as well. It's not going to go hanging out there on Van Dyke.
That's a concern, yeah.
It's going to be within the confines. If you look, you can go around the building there, and then if it gets really busy, there's plenty of lane there for them to line up inside. It's not a problem. And we certainly don't want anything on Crawford Street. You don't want traffic to go in and out of there. Then you're going to have some issues with residents and so on. we've contained everything on site, and we think this site, but for Chick-fil-A, which we're not going to do, it's not for them. I don't think the building takes, it's just not, the design is not for them. We don't have any problem with it. I don't want any problem that's going to cause any health, safety, and welfare issues with the residents or any patrons that come to our facilities. We take a lot of precaution in every fast food location that we design for our Popeyes, for our Burger Kings, et cetera. We're currently up in the city of Lapeer. We've been approved with 2 drive-throughs on a parcel of land, and these issues come up quite a bit. We make sure the traffic is accommodated for. But this is not going to be a Popeyes either. Okay?
You must have read my mind, because I was going to ask, you said it 3 times.
I mean, if you
Okay.
leave it up to Fadi, maybe, but no, not, I don't want it there for a specific reason, because as much as Chick-fil-A is a disaster, sometimes Popeyes can be very crowded, because that chicken sandwich is #1 in the country. I don't want that backing up going on here either, so we're not putting Popeyes here. We got to be within you got to be more than a 5-mile radius. We're on 23 in the Van Dyke E-Way, so that even solidifies it. It's not coming here.
Okay, now you've got 3 tenant spaces, A, B, and C, but you said that it could be 1 or 2?
Well,
It's gonna be
it depends on-
consolidated?
If you get a good, like, perhaps a sit-down restaurant wants to come in and they want to have a mobile device available for pickup, so they would take the whole building, okay? Or they may take 2 units. Or you could have a sleek design for the fast food. They just want to get, traffic in and out. I'm not saying that it's a coffee shop, but you take, for instance, like you got Big B, you got Starbucks, which I don't think is going to come here, but those places will require, the drive-through. But we're entertaining a few different choices. We'd like to have 3 different uses, but it may end up being 1. I don't know yet. The idea is to make it marketable and so that we can attract the right tenant. And we're very selective. Fadi and I, we just don't lease to just anybody. We're very, very selective. And this is my hometown, so I'm being even more selective. Just like the gentleman that came earlier, Fadi and I turned down 3 or 4 different offers on Mound Road. We waited, and we were happy because we got Porsche. And Porsche is one heck of a development to come into our city and in our county. So, I mean, our township, not our city, but it's just like with Kmart. We're sitting on that one. We tore up a contract with U-Haul. We saw some of their facilities. We got feedback, talking to planning and some members on the board. They just don't want that type of operation, so we tore the contract up, and we're waiting. We're patient. We got some great ideas, but by waiting and doing it right, you get a quality tenant, quality development. So that's what we're doing, and we've had the property, Fadi, just under a year. We're still just being very patient and moving along, but we know it's time to make this a nice marketable piece.
Okay. That ends it for me. Any other commissioners have any questions? No?
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, Mr. Grote, go ahead.
We're going to hear from the
Yeah,
public as well,
yes.
so maybe I'll
Wait.
hold my
Okay.
comments.
No problem.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. All right, I'm going to open it to the public. I will say this is the only public hearing the Planning Commission will hold on this rezoning and special land use request. Your remarks will be entered into the record for Township Board evaluation. The Planning Commission is a recommending body. The Township Board will take into consideration these comments when making the final decision on the rezoning. Anyone in the audience or a group spokesman is now welcome to speak in support of the project or against. What I'd ask when you come down, you can address the chair, and when you're done, I ask that you sign the sheet of paper so we have the records for our minutes to keep them on file. At this point, I'll open the floor to anyone wanting to come down and speak. Come on down. You might want to put that mic toward you, too, so they can hear you.
Yeah,
Okay.
you can hear me. I got a big voice.
Name and address, please.
Yeah, my name is Tom Matajasic. I own the residential lot.
What's your address, please, Tom?
Pardon me?
Your address?
1180 Cedar, Birmingham, Michigan.
Okay, go ahead.
I own the residential lot that abuts the new project. As far as developing the property, it's time to develop it anyway. It should have been developed years ago, when Van Dyke should have been widened. It should have been developed a long time. I'm not here to give anybody a hard time as far as the developing. The only thing I'm worried about is I have a residential lot, and with drive-through, it's very, very busy. They've got hours, different hours than other people have, other businesses have. And I'm planning on, my plan with that property was always, I was always hoping that that lot would be incorporated into the commercial property and use it as a buffer between the residential and the commercial, which it didn't work out. So now my plan is I have to go with a residential lot, and I'm planning on maybe building a house there. If I build a house there, the people that want to buy the house, they're going to worry about this drive-through and all this activity that we're going to have there. I know that the requirement on C2 is 30 feet buffer and a wall. I don't know if they have 30 feet. A major buffer is 50 feet. I'd really prefer to have 50 feet and the wall away from my property. And like I said, I'm not saying anything about the project. The project is a nice project. It's a little tight. I think it needs, it would need a little bit more room to put three units on that piece of property. Is going to be a little tight over there. And what I'm worried about is if I build a house there, I got to worry about that traffic, trying to sell it. That's going to be the first drawback that I'm going to have. And residential lots abutting commercial property, it doesn't help the value of the residential lot. And what it is here, I'm on C2, I'm reading, it says C2. These uses, however, must be scaled to the nature that they do not negatively impact the nearby resident use. Well, drive-through is a lot, and as far as, some of these drive-throughs, they just back up traffic. If you look at the drive-through restaurant, the Popeyes on Van Dyke, they're always backed up over there. And another thing, I drove around the area, all the new development that you people have put through, they all got big buffers. You got a drive-through that's approved across the street from the property, and they got 4 ponds that separate them and separate the residential from the commercial. We're only separating it with, I think, 25 feet and a wall. And I know that's the way it is, but I think that being its drive-through, I think it should be major. We should have at least a 50-foot and a wall. That's what I would like to see.
Okay. Anything else?
Okay?
Okay.
And like I said, I'm not bad-mouthing the project. The project is a nice project, and it's time to do it. It's time to start building out there. I own the property since, I owned that property originally since '84, and I sold it to Fadi and Phil there. And I'm not saying anything bad about their project. It's just that I have to worry about my piece of property. and I got to worry about the traffic and the amount of what's going to be going on over there if it's drive-through. If it was C1 right now, and they left the zoning C1, I wouldn't even be here today. I'm worried about the drive-through as far as the value of my property.
Okay, understood. Make sure you sign in, Tom. I appreciate it.
And thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else wish to speak? Come on down.
How's everybody doing? William Spitz, 8300 East Pearson, Shelby Township. For starters, the petitioner just kind of, personally to me, insulted Marv's. Marv's has been in our area for quite some time, and they do excellent work. And if I'm not mistaken, they have an 8-foot wall, not a 6-foot wall, and they have it covered up for quite well. I'm kind of disappointed that he insulted them, for one. Another, why are we rezoning for the purpose of them to be able to sell it, okay, to have more attraction for other people and other businesses? You bought it C1, leave it C1. We do not want a drive-through in the neighborhoods, okay? They tried the drive-through for a Taco Bell on Pearson, and we did not like that, and you guys backed us on that, not allowing it to go through. Nobody in our residential area wants to be smelling that, nor do we want the traffic of the drive-through. If you take in consideration Bread and Roses, which is on Pearson, or near Pearson, there's an overflow there, and that's just a restaurant. We certainly don't want an overflow through a drive-through. Why would we, again, rezone for a drive-through when you don't have an actual site plan of what's going to be built there? If you're putting another bank in with a drive-through, well, I'm sure we can make arrangements. Okay, but this drive-through for fast food is ridiculous next to a residential site. I don't see the reason for it. Again, we already still are having problems with the cannon drain as it is already, and I don't know what effect this is going to have to it either, with having so many, you're changing it from C1 to C2. I don't understand why. I still don't understand why we would even consider a rezoning without knowing what exactly is going in there. Thank you.
Thanks, Bill. Make sure you sign in. Thank you. Anyone else wish to speak from the floor? Going once, going twice. Okay, hearing none, we'll bring it back to the board. Julie, you want to make your comments?
Sure. Thank you, Chairman. So basically, the drive-through accessory window here is not intended, in my opinion, and based on the site plan that was presented, as a high-impact drive-through. As Mr. Ruggieri stated, with COVID, there has been some modifications, and people are accessing drive-throughs a little bit more than typical anymore. You can drive through, and it is a convenience. And again, from the plan that was submitted, it was submitted as an accessory drive-through with 3 units there. Now, I understand that it can change, but the conditional rezoning is tied to the site plan, and the site plan is tied to the conditional rezoning. So I guess my question for Mr. Ruggieri would be, is it, an accessory drive-through, or is it going to be a full-scale drive-through? Because, we do have these situations in the township already. Tide across the street on the west side of Van Dyke has an accessory drive-through, which this is a new concept, again, that has been, popping up all over the place. We have smoothie shops that have accessory drive-throughs. Those are considered all low-impact drive-throughs. And we have one at 21 in the southwest corner of 21 in Van Dyke that is adjacent to a property owner. And matter of fact, that one has very minimal buffer area between the residential property and the drive-through lane there. Another one is Lettuce here at 24 in Van Dyke. They have an accessory drive-through. I don't think people even realize they have a drive-through window there, and the stacking, there really isn't a stacking lane there. So in my opinion, this is not going to be a high-impact drive-through as would be a Popeyes or a Taco Bell or something of that nature. So I think if, the board would like, they can put that condition as part of this motion. The second part of it is the difference between C1 and C2 is basically square footage. So primarily what's allowed in C1 is allowed in C2. However, there's a square footage limitation as far as restaurants go. There's certain limitations on the square footage of what can go in those. And the C2 obviously does not have those limitations. Our master plan, as this relates to our master plan designates this area as mixed residential. So if we were to take that into consideration, obviously this lot is too small to develop as a mixed residential. So basically, he would not be able to develop it according to our master plan. And there is a section in our master plan also that allows us to deviate from this master plan based on the characteristics and the conditions in surrounding properties, which in this case, I think it would be appropriate to deviate, because there's no way you're going to be able to rezone this as multiple family or a mixed residential use. So as far as that goes, I think this would provide a systematic development with the rest of the with the rest of the corridor on Van Dyke. As you see, again, on the west side of Van Dyke, we have, we've done this. We've allowed a drive-through in an area. Now, as far as the buffer zone goes, 25 feet with a wall is what the ordinance calls for, and that is what's being shown on the plan as well. The only other thing I would recommend is perhaps to provide a little bit more screening, is increase the height of the wall, and instead of a concrete, precast concrete wall, do the vinyl fencing as we've done for Kroger and such, so it looks consistent. The facade is consistent with the fence, where it looks like a faux stone fence looking instead of the concrete looking fence. The site also meets all the site plan requirements. No variances are required for this. There's minor site plan issues that they would have to work out, but other than that, it's consistent with what we've approved in the area. And again, I would just like clarification on the drive-through itself.
Okay, Mr. Ruggieri?
Yes, thank you. Yes, Julie, as we've indicated in our meetings, it would be a softer use, more of an ancillary type drive-through, not high impact. That's exactly what we are looking for. And we would have no objection increasing the height of the wall to 8 feet and using the vinyl as opposed to the concrete that you just alluded to. Because we saw that in your write-up, then we have no problem with that.
Let me go through some of the issues, Mr. Ruggieri, that were come up for questions. Clarification on the rezoning. That's one of the reasons I brought up the point about the stacking and the drive-through.
Sure.
When you said it could be 1, 2, or 3 tenants, obviously if it's one with a drive-through, that would make this a heavier intense use than if it's 3 tenants with a drive-through with a softer use. So you've said it's softer use. I don't know necessarily what that means actually, but absolutely, but I get what you're doing. Now, you've agreed to increase the wall to the 8 feet to the residents to the east, which is
Yes.
good. Yes. Okay. There was a question raised about. They were concerned about the smell from the facility. Could you care to comment on that?
Yeah, I go to Bed and Roses probably 3 times a week minimum, and they have some traffic parking concerns there because of configuration. But I don't see any smelling, or I don't detect any smelling or odors emanating from that building at all. That's kind of a surprise to me, so I can't comment more than that. But the type of soft uses with this type of drive-through, I can use for instance, like they have that Beyond Juice concept. They have that type of tropical smoothie, those type of places. They don't have any odors of any kind, and that's kind of what we're gravitating towards. That type of a softer use with an accessory use mobile drive-through. That's really what our target is. So we don't think there's going to be an odor issue with whatever we put in there. You're not going to get a hamburger place. You're not going to get, places that cook a lot of food and they send out the smoke through the roof and so on. That's not what we're talking about.
There was a question by Tom who was concerned about the impact of commercial abutting his residential property. Do you care to comment on that?
Yeah, I got a lot of things, but I'll hold off on some comments about Tom. But Tom...
Be nice.
Yeah, he left.
Oh, you did? Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, this was his property. He said on the record he's owned it since 1984. Now, if he wanted to buy or build a house on it, he should have done it a long time ago. He had no intention of putting a house there, okay? And we approached him to buy that piece because it's a long piece. It doesn't have a lot of value, but it does provide more buffer. We wanted to take that piece all the way down to Bed and Roses, and we wanted to buy Marv's Electric and that little house that makes, I think it's false teeth there. Marv was less than genuine. We had 2 meetings set up, and then he just canceled them twice. And Marv is parking on our property on a regular basis despite our protests. We said, stay off our land, you're trespassing. He's got cars just cutting in, trucks coming in, and I warned him. And I've also applied in Shelby for a no trespassing sign.
Okay, the question, I appreciate what you're saying. The question is, he's concerned about a commercial abutting a residential property.
Well, the thing is, that property since 1984 was already commercial, so whatever impact is going to happen, it's a very subtle change between the C1 and C2, as Julie's indicated. So that's not going to have really any impact. And a soft type of drive-through is going to have 0 impact as well. Now we're going to increase the height of the wall from 6 feet to 8. So that takes care of that issue, and we got a substantial amount of buffering with the landscaping inside the wall. So whatever obstruction or impact that he feels would happen to that lot, which he'll never build a house on, is 0. We think we've adequately considered that from day one. And we've offered to buy it, and at the last date, after I drafted 3 agreements, the man changes his mind. He's like an extortionist.
Okay, we have that, and we'll put all right, we won't go there, but, okay. Any other commissioners have any other questions? Mr. Grote?
Yes.
Have to show the rest of the diagram on here. It's quite a bit.
That's all right. Go ahead.
What's the length of your property?
The length?
Yeah.
That's probably a pretty good question, Mr. Grant. I'll have to look at the plan.
Okay.
330 feet along Crawford by 132 feet along Van Dyke.
Thank you, Julie.
You're absolutely correct that many of the places these days love to have a pickup window. It's not necessarily drive-through to conduct business like McDonald's or Burger King's. That's what comes to mind a lot of times. But basically have a window to pick things up. If it's a nice restaurant, dinners to go, whatever, a lot of people don't want to leave their car. They want to come up to the window.
Just saying Uber.
Wait,
They want to come up to even somebody said funeral now is if you can view it, driving
California.
through. So this concept of driving through and picking things up, it's a new concept and it's going to grow. We can't avoid it because people are on the run. They don't want to leave the car. They want to drive through. Even cleaners tied across the street. You don't even have to leave your car. You bring the bag, drop it off, come back, drive around. And so there's traffic there, and it's a nice development. There are other businesses in that strip mall, but Tide is got a great solution. You just go around, pick it up one way, and we use that service a lot. Multiple families development, and that scares me there in that neighborhood. Mr. Willie Bill, there's no way in heck I would support anything multiple anymore in that area because you guys fighting hard on that other development. And that restaurant you mentioned, Bread and Roses, they got an issue there with parking. If they don't solve their parking, they asking for trouble. And so, but we want to leave this it's not of your concern. As far as the smell, can you assure us that there's not going to be, and I don't know if we can put it in, because this is
Well, I think we can state that we'll take every effort to contain any type of smell or odor that would emanate from the facility, but we're just not sure what's going to be in there.
Absolutely.
You know, but I think we're going to take every precaution. There's a lot of ways to skin that cat.
There's no doubt, you're on commercial land, you're on a major road, Van Dyke,
Right.
fast-moving road. And you took care of Crawford, which I'm very pleased with. You got a heavy buffer there. And also you're addressing the issue in the back with the neighbor. I'm a little surprised, maybe it's a seller's remorse that, he didn't sell the property. Now he's kind of trying to have it both ways.
We made a legitimate offer for that.
I'm surprised you
He had
guys
no
didn't
use for
come
that
to
land.
terms.
Well, he at the last second, all of a sudden, he doubles his price out of nowhere.
Yeah.
We said, well, forget it. In fact, he insulted Fadi at his office, and
This is a public hearing. We've heard from some residents, and this is going to the Board of Trustees yet, right? Correct?
Correct.
So we are just recommending body, of course. But what I've heard, that you can actually put multiple on their property scares me, because if that's the case,
yeah, I don't want to do that.
we got enough of that stuff already.
We have no intention of going that route.
Right. So, and you got a right to develop that property, but we also have a obligation to residents to make sure that we protect and
Sure.
make sure that their standard of life is not affected in any way. So,
And that's why we've got nice landscaping and buffering for that reason.
yeah,
We
the
wanna
wall,
protect
the wall will
residents.
help, like, the resident.
To
will
make
be
it 8
happy
feet,
with the wall. As far as the next door, they got one heck of a business, but that parking lot, my goodness, they are lacking parking as well.
well, see, the problem with that building is Tom allowed them to use, or not use, I mean, improperly use his land to do the excess parking. So what happens in the morning, people drive on our property, they park and they leave their key in the car, and it's right on our property.
Yeah.
And it's not right. It's pure trespass. And we've had this property well over a year. We've been very kind to Marv's Electric, but enough is enough. I told him that you are interfering with the usage of our land, and once we put the no trespassing signs up, which I've been holding off, we're going to start towing your cars out of there. I just warned him. It's just not right. He doesn't have enough area to park those cars, and it's already becoming a major
I'm
problem.
going to study this a little bit more. I like your landscaping all the way around. It's like very contained development. Hopefully you can use that building for one business instead of three. Hopefully,
That's our goal.
that would be our hope.
Well, the noise from the
Right, so there's a lot of, but this is.
And we're not going to get into a debate with the floor, but go ahead,
This
Mr.
is,
Gordon.
Julie, this is, we still can have a lot of input what goes on there, don't we?
Correct. This is a site plan the rezoning is conditioned upon the
Conditional,
proposed site plan.
I mean, hopefully you work with our department, and
Sure.
if we have any
As
concerns.
I always do.
Those are my questions. I'm gonna vote yes, just to bump it up to the next step, but we got a lot of questions yet.
Appreciate it.
And
We're here to
gonna
answer them.
talk to the neighbors as
We'll
well.
address everything, Mr.
Okay,
Pratt.
thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Anyone else have any questions?
Mr. Turner, can I
Go ahead,
make a comment?
Julie. Yep.
I just wanted to say, too, in the C1 zoning district, even if it was developed as a C1, a restaurant can occupy the space. So as far as smell goes, we really can't regulate that. Even in a C1 district, if a restaurant went in there, regardless if there was a drive-through or not, they could have a restaurant in that building.
And I'll just say one thing about that is if I lived there and the smell was, you could smell it, my only objection would be that I would always have a constant craving for fast food. Then I would kind of be upset trying to lose weight. I just want to make that for the record. Having no other comments, I would ask a motion to close the public hearing.
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Moved and supported. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. This planning commission decision for this proposed change must be based on the following: the practicality of this rezoning request and the effect on the surrounding area, the owner's right to use his land? Do current growth and development patterns warrant this rezoning? And is the proposed rezoning in accordance with the master plan? The Planning Commission may recommend approval, disapproval, or table this request to evaluate the information we received this evening. Motion would be in order. On the rezoning. Is there someone want to make a motion for the rezoning?
Mr. Chair,
Mr. LeRae?
I'd like to make a motion to recommend approval of the Township Board for conditional rezoning petition number 0122 to rezone parcel number 2307-03151-07-017 from C1 local retail to C2 linear retail for the following reasons. The proposed zoning is largely consistent with the existing zoning patterns along Van Dyke. The change would not adversely impact any abutting development. And number three, the change in the zoning is not out of scale with the needs of the community.
Is there support? Supported by Commissioner Gonzalez. Any questions on the motion? Hearing none. Commissioner LeRae?
Yes.
Commissioner Gonzalez? Yes. Commissioner Snyder?
Yes.
Commissioner Grote?
Yes.
And chair votes yes. Motion carries on the rezoning. Next is a motion on the special land use request. Is there someone to make a motion?
Mr. Chair,
Yes, Mr. Snyder, go ahead.
move to recommend approval to the Township Board for Site Plan 22-09, Special Land Use Number 1 for Phil Ruggieri, F&F Van Dyke LLC, proposing a retail building with fast food drive-through for the following reasons. The proposal use of the site for a retail center with a fast food restaurant is consistent with the development pattern along Van Dyke. Adequate access has been provided by way of a single entrance to Van Dyke. The submission of the revised site plan is required, incorporating applicable review comments from township departments and engineer. This site was a blighting influence on the community and in general, and the Van Dyke corridor in particular.
Support.
Motion by Commissioner Snyder, supported by Commissioner LeRae. I would ask if you would like to add one more point to the motion, that the applicant agrees to increase the height of the screening wall to the east to 8 feet, an 8-foot vinyl screening wall.
Sure.
Yep.
Motion, seconder, okay.
Mr.,
Yes,
go ahead. Go ahead.
Go ahead. You're-
Mr. Chair, I would
Yep.
just ask that it would be referenced as an accessory drive-through, and an accessory drive-through instead of a fast food
That's what I was saying.
restaurant. If
That's fine.
motion maker
Yep.
would agree.
Mr. Snyder, Mr.
Fine,
LeRae,
yep.
good,
Yes.
okay. Anything else? We got it all, okay. Any questions on the motion? Hearing none. I'll call the roll. Commissioner Snyder?
Yes.
Commissioner LeRae?
Yes.
Commissioner Gonzalez? Yes. Commissioner Grote?
Yes.
And chair votes yes. Motion carries.
Thank you very much.
Okay, next step.
You're done.
Now we got to, let me get my agenda.
Have a good night.
Thank you. Planning Director's report. Julie, anything?
No, I don't have anything, Mr.
All right.
Chair.
Is there a motion to adjourn?
Move to adjourn.
Is there support? Motion and second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Chairman,
Oh,
before
Mr.
we
Grote, go
gavel it, are we still going to allow the residents 3 minutes?
Oh, yeah, is it business from the floor? That's a good thing.
Think we
Business
skip
from the
that?
floor? Come on up, Bill.
Yeah.
Yep, Bill Spitz again. I just have a question for all of you. Again, why do we rezone? I'm going to ask the planner, why do we want to rezone when we don't have an actual plan set in stone of what's going to be built? So my question would be, I mean, they obviously could do a C1 the way it is. Why are we changing zoning before anything's built? Does that make sense, or you understand what I'm saying?
Julie, you want to answer that?
Well, that site plan it's a conditional site plan, so that is what they're proposing, what Mr. Ruggieri showed on the screen is what they're going to have to build. So that site plan is tied to the rezoning. And the
Okay.
rezoning is tied to the site plan. So he can't build anything different than what he proposed this evening.
Okay, but still includes a drive-through, right? I mean, that's,
An accessory drive-through, correct.
okay, but when you say accessory, the attorney may be able to answer it. Does that mean what does accessory mean? And what guidelines?
Means
are
it's
you
not a
have? Once you get
primary drive-through.
It's a drive-through, right?
No, there's a different difference. That's why I asked
Okay.
about the stacking. It's a difference if you've got a fast food restaurant that does 90% of its drive-through. Now we're going to have an issue because I can predict that the traffic's going to be a snarled mess there.
Correct.
Accessory drive-through is if you have a smaller business that has, as Mr. Grote said, a pickup window or something like that, where your primary business might be inside, but you can pick things up. Mr. Kirk, is that a good definition of an accessory?
That would be correct.
So it's not the primary use, it's a secondary way for you to
Okay.
sell your product.
Okay. I guess I'm trying to understand, because I don't like when people change the zoning, because I'd like to build a skyscraper on 8300 East Pearson, and I hope you don't mind, I own it, but I can change it because I want to build.
No, we understand.
You know, I mean, that's just, my,
As Julie said, it was a conditional rezoning and a site plan, they're both tied together.
Okay.
And again, we were just recommending. as
I
Mr.
understand you recommend, but
Yeah.
they take in consideration quite a bit on the board that you recommend.
And we got a
So-
guy right here who already said he's got a lot more work to do
Right.
and more
Yeah.
research to do, so I know he'll do his due diligence.
Yeah, I understand that too.
But I understand your concerns, Bill.
Right, and that's my big thing with drive-throughs is the speaker, the constant talking, constant ordering, at 2 in the morning. I mean, I don't care what kind of wall you got, you ain't covering it, so that's another reason I said, what do you mean by conditional and what, and low impact or what? I don't know. So, all right, thanks.
Yeah.
All right.
So if I can
Right.
add something
Yep.
else too, Bill, so there's another drive-through, Savvy Sliders, I believe it is just north of 21 in Van Dyke. That shopping center has an accessory drive-through window, so I'm not sure, I don't believe they even have speakers outside. I think you just either order online and do your drive-through and it's a pickup window more or less than a drive-through.
Right, but again, they're in that big complex. There's
No, it's a smaller retail center on the west side of Van Dyke, just north
Right
of
by
21
Kroger's.
Mile.
Right.
No.
Oh, I'm thinking.
North of 21 Mile.
I'm
On
sorry.
the
North
west
of
side.
21 Mile.
21, you're
I
at.
believe they have two types of businesses in there, and it's more or less, they order online, and they just drive through and pick it up.
I thought you were referring to across Pearson on the other side of Van Dyke. They have one of those, but they didn't have a drive-through. I didn't realize they had one when you said it. I thought maybe they did, but they
No,
don't.
Further north of 21 Mile.
North of 21. Okay,
On Van Dyke.
all right, thanks.
Okay.
All right.
Okay, Bill, thanks. I don't see anybody else, so the motion and second has been made to adjourn. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes, meeting adjourned. Good night, everyone.